Okay, guys, so today I am going to be doing another Q&A, and for this one, I'm going to be focusing only on the questions that have to do with higher forms. So anything having to do with elementals and angels, things like that. Since my last Q&A video, you guys submitted like a lot of questions, so that's the only reason why I'm separating it. But you guys seriously asked the most interesting questions. I'm in shock. And this is why I do these videos because they're just so interesting that I just have to answer them. And I just like kind of casually talking about things like this. So just a reminder that I'm just giving my opinion as a psychic person who also does OBEs and also researches. So this is just my perspective. I don't consider myself an expert. So anything that I say, use your own intuition as you're listening. But before we get into it, I just wanted to let you know about my new psychic development course. It's called You Are Already Psychic. In this course, I take you through the process that I followed to open and further develop my psychic abilities. There are 8 modules. So in module 1, we go over the basics. In module 2, we focus on clearing the body of trauma so we can receive information clearly. In 3, we go into spirit guides and dealing with dark forces. In module 4, we do actual exercises and psychic games to help activate our psychic abilities. 5 focuses on tools. 6 is practice sessions, and so on. When you sign up for the course, you get lifetime access and any future videos or modules that I will add. So if you are interested, definitely click the link below to learn more and to sign up. And when you join, you also get access to a community group where you can ask questions as you go through the course. Okay, so as I said, these questions are so interesting. So let's look at them. First question: are there any other traits to tell if you're in the 144,000 without being psychic? Okay, so I did talk about this in my last Q&A video, and I will link to that question so you can just see what I said, but I will add a bit to it. The 144,000, they're like a family, what I call a Christed family at a very high level of creation within this universe. They're kind of like the original souls, the first ones in this universe. So I did write an article going over some traits, and I will also link that below. And if you want to read that either now or after, that'll also explain more what the 144,000 are, or just what I have found that they are. So, in addition to those traits, it is possible. This is just based on my kind of observations and my channelings. So, it is possible that if you have ever gotten activated by a celebrity, you may be part of the 144,000 or very closely linked to them. Because think about how as above, so below. So a lot of the very big and major celebrities in our world right now are connected to the 144,000, or they are one of the 144,000 because they strategically incarnate into these positions where they can make a big impact on the world. So they have one life and they want to make a big impact. So think about like the really big celebrities. So I can say for myself, I have been activated spiritually by a very major celebrity. So I only listened to this person's voice and I had kind of like a clearing in my energy field. This is something that you can't control. It just kind of happens. So this isn't really being obsessed with a celebrity. It's just you come across their stuff or you hear their voice or just see them or see like a photo of them, and then you'll get some kind of clearing or something like that. Or like a chakra will be cleared, your heart will be cleared somehow. Yeah. So I have heard this happening to other people, and I'm not saying that I am part of this group, but I'm just saying that it could be a sign that you're connected to it in some way. So you're working on behalf of them or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I will also say that another trait of the 144,000 is that they will not stop. They are relentless. So I will say that an example of this could potentially be Alexander Hamilton. He is known for writing like nonstop. That is from Hamilton, the musical. I don't know if you know it, but there's a song called Nonstop because he just wrote into the night. He wouldn't stop. He knew that he had to do it. He knew it was part of this purpose he had. So I do find that people who are in the 144,000, they have this relentless quality where if there's an obstacle put in their way, they don't care. They're going to plow right through it. They're going to like fight to the death. They're not here to enjoy life. They're here to really do something, get a message out. Yeah. And no matter what is put in their way, it's like they keep coming back to that. This is also a possible trait, but the 144,000, they might think money is kind of strange. They don't really get why society has to function the way it does. They kind of see through all of that. They might see money as like a game. You know what I mean? They don't value it the way that it normally would be. But again, this is all based on just my own observations. Is there an elemental in fiction you personally feel drawn to? Seems some artists channel real living elementals and tend to appear in some shape or form in anime or stories in general. So, yes, definitely. I think whatever your strongest elemental connections are, you'll just like those elementals. So, growing up, maybe you really liked fairies or elves or whatever. That is for a reason, even the elements themselves. So maybe you like flowers, leaves, water, fire. I will say for myself that I love mermaids. Everyone knows that by now. I can give you so many examples. When I was little, I had like an actual flounder stuffed animal on my bed. I would just pretend to be Ariel with the flounder stuffed animal. Yeah, I always loved mermaids. Um, and I also liked elves. I remember when I was little, I wanted to be the elves in the mall, like that help Santa. I was always so jealous of them. It's like, how can I be one of those elves? And I thought they were actually real. So, yeah, you'll just kind of have an affinity with certain elementals. So, yeah, these elementals do show up in our movies and TV shows, books, things like that. It is because they really did exist and those myths were passed down from like a long time ago and they're in our memories. And if you're someone who is connected to, let's say, mermaids, for example, so you were a mermaid in a past life, like you have that within your soul signature, then you might write a story about a mermaid and not really know why, but that's most likely why. If someone who was neutral rep or even dark rep asked you for a reading, would you tell them the type of rep they are? I have a feeling people do not really like knowing they are a rep. I mean, does anyone want to be rep? Honestly, I appreciate you calling it rep because that's what I call it when I talk about it like out loud because I don't want this channel to get flagged for anything. So I have never done a reading for someone who was a rep if you can believe that. Not even a free reading. So if I did do a reading for them, I probably wouldn't say what type of rep they were. I would just say they were. I have done readings for people where we find out that their boyfriend or whoever parent is rep, but I have never done a reading where they actually are. So that's pretty funny. I feel like they know to just stay away from me and I know to stay away from them. The thing with reps is that there are neutral reps that are just kind of running on a program. There are also, yeah, the more dark ones. There are ones that are actually not fallen at all. And one example of that, so a rep that's actually very spiritually powerful is Enya. So she's not dragon, she is a very spiritually powerful rep. So it's something that you see very occasionally. Same with all the other races. So insectoids, like all of that, I actually do see some who are very awake. So it's that's so interesting, right? But most of them are not. The same way that you have humans who are NPC and very they don't have a lot of free will and they you could say they're fallen. There are even some humans who are downright possessed and evil. It's just that certain races just tend to be more. Maybe it has to do with the way the body is designed, but yeah. And I just wanted to add that when it comes to reps, they are often in positions of power. I don't know how they do it. It's like absolutely insane. But most CEOs, especially those really big, powerful companies like those big agricultural companies, tech companies, things like that, they'll just somehow be rep, and I don't know how that works. Also, people in Congress, people in high levels of government. It's just something that they tend to be the same way that avians tend to be comedians and Lyrans tend to be hairdressers. It's like reps tend to be CEOs that are all about power and dominating. They just love being on the top of the pyramid. And then you also have CEOs who use their power not to just drain people under them, but to actually do something good in the world. I'll use Jack Dorsey as an example. He doesn't have any rep coding. He's like a winged lion, like a griffin type star race. And I find that his projects are very much about empowering people and building community. However, star race alone, that can't really tell you how someone's going to act. It can give you a little hint on maybe what side they're on or where they're coming from. But that alone can't really tell you the whole picture on what could happen in their life to make them do what they're going to do. What do beings in higher forms do? Do they play, host dinner parties, swim in water? What are their lives like? They do actually do a lot of similar things to us. It depends what level they're at. So, for example, if it's an angel in the angelic realm, they actually have clothes, they have accessories, they might have a sword, a book, something like that. They do use physical items. The big difference is that they're in love pretty much all the time, and we aren't. So that will affect what they do. Also, in those higher planes, all time is happening at once. So for them, there's a lot more freedom in what they can do. They can kind of do what they want when they want, whereas we can't. They're more just in this state of love. They have endless energy. They don't have to sleep because they are connected to that endless, eternal energy. Picture just a more fun earth where you can do whatever you want, whenever you want. They also don't have to die to leave. They can choose to leave and go somewhere else, be something else whenever. It is all about their own will. Whereas we have to die to leave. So think about that. Um, I don't know, is that okay? that we have to wait. We just have to accept it, I guess. Next question. How are we connected to multiple higher forms? When we leave the earth, which higher form do we become again? Can I be an angel and still play with my sister who is from the fairy realm? Okay, I think I know who asked this question, and I love this question. So you can think of higher forms as your soul DNA. Everything you've been is kind of stored in the memory of your soul. And because all time is happening at once, you still have access to all of that. And you still are all of that, even though you are in this experience now. So I think that after you die, you potentially wake up where you last were. So you might be streaming in from the angelic realm, you might be streaming in from the galactic realm, you might be streaming in from some other place. Um, and okay, I just thought of something actually. I had this OBE, but it was a little bit astrally, but then also an OBE. It's interesting how it varies like that. So you can have an astral travel with OBE elements, and then you can have an OBE with astral elements. The goal is to get totally out where it's a full OBE. But I was doing an OBE, so I was exiting a lucid dream, which so that's a method that you can do an OBE. I exited the dream and I was laying on something, like I was laying on some kind of bed, and I heard all of these voices around me, and they were all kind of like touching me, and like stuff was happening as if I was about to wake up. Um, and it just really made me think, is it possible that some of us are asleep either in the far past or in the far future, and we're like these ancient humans? We're like from another time, and we went into these kind of, it could be a pod or it could be in ancient Egypt. I'm pretty sure they had these beds that there's like technology to kind of put someone in stasis. And what if we projected our consciousness here and we're just sleeping in the far past as like a knight or something? I actually felt like I was a knight or something, some kind of really old, ancient human. But, anyways, or maybe like a giant or something. I don't know. So, sorry, that's kind of off topic, but it kind of relates. So, then think about how time is accessible. So, depending on where you're streaming in from, I would think that that's what you would wake up as after you die, like in the afterlife. And so when it comes to communicating or playing with your sister, so elementals, I'm pretty sure they can interact with each other because there are some elementals that are connected to multiple elements. So, for example, a goblin is connected to both earth and water. So, I don't think there's separation with the elementals. I actually think an elf could be friends with a fairy, a rock troll could be friends with a gnome. Like mermaids can interact with whatever other elementals, especially if the other elementals are sharing, like whatever soul is occupying that elemental. So let's say your sister is a fairy and you are a mermaid, and you guys are also connected on higher levels. So when you see her as a mermaid, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I know you. Even though she's a fairy, you can still interact the same way how we can interact with animals and feel a connection to them, even though we're not the same species. I just had a random late night thought and saw one of your TV show Symbolism Reactions. Although I never watched this show, I had this random thought on speaking about Grey's Anatomy and the irony of gray aliens. doing, according to some people, about them conducting experiments on certain humans. Do you think there's a direct correlation to this show? So, yes, you are right. Greys do have this correlation with surgery and tampering with the human body and the human DNA. So, I have said in the past that the Greys are all about that gender bending stuff. So, the trans stuff, that is all gray. That's like a gray agenda. And it's just to move people towards this idea of you don't need a woman to give birth. You can do that through a machine. You can give birth through an artificial womb. And it's because they need that more artificial DNA for them to exist in the body. So I never really watched Grey's Anatomy, but the lady who was the showrunner, she, just according to me, she looks like she's connected to this kind of like a nanobot type substance, which to me is connected to the Greys. It's like this astral substance. So she is connected to this robotic kind of stuff. So yeah, it could be that she was subconsciously connected to the Greys and she decided to call it Grey's Anatomy. Just she didn't know why, but she somehow channeled that because she's already connected to them from a previous incarnation. Question about darker fae elementals. What are vampires? I've had this weird attraction and simultaneous fear, disgust towards them. Sometimes they creep me out, but I can't help but want to know more. And are there any other elementals that fall into the dark fae category? I remember you mentioned your eye and hair color may relate to them, and I would love to know more. Okay, so I do think vampires are real. Okay, everything you see in movies and books and all that, they really are real. It's just that we don't see them now, but they have existed and they do exist now um, within our kind of soul memories and our soul DNA. I also think they actually exist physically, like they can exist physically. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Twilight, but to me that's a real thing. Vampires are a very specific type of energy to me. They do have a watery energy, so it is like a water elemental, but it's very dark. It's pretty much the darkest type of water elemental that there could be. You can see vampires as being the shadow of the light. And think about also how water is known to be this feminine element, and vampires are very they're very extractive. They're like a dark feminine kind of force where they literally bite you and like suck the life out of you. So yeah, people can be connected to vampires in a higher form, and this is an elemental. And then you can also see them as um, like what you would see in Twilight, where it's a more humany vampire. So it's like a hybrid kind of. So I don't know if I should say this, but whatever. Um, so so guys, like really, I went out with a vampire. Okay. I dated a vampire. So this is someone who is connected to vampires on a higher level. And he literally bit me. I'm not kidding. Okay. Like, yeah, you guys think I'm kidding, but I'm actually not. I'm not kidding. So that is a trait. Yeah. Also, in addition to these more elemental vampires, you have the actual character of a vampire. So you have, I call this Draculas. So in my archetypal realm video, I mentioned this archetypal being. So think about Count Dracula. So it's not really a vampire like on the elemental level, it's the actual character of a vampire. And some people can be connected to that. So that's pretty weird, right? That's weird. Yeah, but it's true, at least to me. And as for the other darker fae, so vampires, that's a very, very, very dark water elemental. Another dark water elemental is kelpies. So they also have this very whirlpool like kind of extractive, or just they have this very whirlpool like attractive energy. I find more so than a siren. So they're kind of close to vampires. What else? Also the sea warlocks and sea witches. So that's just a very, very, very dark siren, which could be in the same kind of category as the kelpies and the vampires. And I would also say that another very dark elemental is gremlins. So that's a type of goblin who is also connected to water and like soil. And I would say imps are also very dark. So this is another type of goblin. So when you combine the kind of lower earth, so the soil with the water, yeah, that could create more of an intense, dark, and wild elemental. But then there are other goblins who are more connected to the lighter earth. So maybe more of the moss and things like that. So they're not going to be as intense, they're going to be more gentle. And yes, you're totally right with the eye thing. So I find with vampires, kelpies, and those darker elementals, you will often have dark brown or almost black looking eyes. It's not across the board though. So there could be another hive form that overrides that. But yeah, you can tell also by the color of the eyes. Do you think it's possible that the people who appear completely blank are also people who are projecting their consciousness from their soul body, which would be located somewhere else? I know there is talk about people projecting in from pods, which makes me wonder if their energy would be perceived differently. This is such an interesting question. I actually got this on one of my YouTube videos and just decided to include it. I find that people projecting in from pods, that doesn't decide anything. That doesn't decide if you're NPC or not. And yes, you're right. There are people who have just a blank energy where there's nothing going on. They might as well be a cardboard box. Sometimes that's because they are an actual clone, like an actual bio robot. That doesn't happen as often as people think, but it does. You might see these clones on the red carpet doing different things, and you would never really know. You would think maybe they're walking a bit weird. There's something a little bit too perfect about what they're saying and doing. But a person can also be blank because their spirit and their soul has left their body because they were doing really heavy drugs and things like that. So that's also a possibility. So it is very individual why someone is blank, but I will give an example. So Ashiana Dean, I have mentioned her, I think, a couple times before, but she is this spiritual teacher and researcher. To me, she has a very blank energy that I would consider to be a little NPC ish. However, she also is connected to a very high level avatar. She actually says this, and she's not kidding about it. She really is like a very high level Lyran avatar. Like I think she said it's in the 15th dimension or something like that. So she really is that. But she's also very blank and appears to kind of just be running on program. So what I actually found is that with her specifically, so she is a creation of the from the mind. of the creator. So okay, I'm going to use an analogy. Maybe that will help to explain this. But think about how when you're playing a computer game and you can choose to play against the computer. So those players were created by someone, they were created by a real person. But those players, those computer players, are not individual souls, if that makes sense. They're not like individual spirits. So with Ashiana Dean, that's kind of how I see her. She is a creation from the mind of the creator who is feminine, the feminine mind. Um, like the mother, think about the mother soul. The mother soul creates, and she is a creation of the mother soul. So technically, she is made by a real spirit. Yeah. This is just based on my perspective, but that is one way that you can get an NPC. There are also certain star races who are just more likely to be NPCs. So if someone is connected to that star race, they'll kind of be running on an NPC program. But even with that, it varies. But yeah, certain races like the insectoids tend to be NPC. But then you have some insectoids who are awake. So I cannot stress that it's just a race, like it's just a body, you know what I mean? So, yeah, just to fully answer your question, being in a pod doesn't make someone NPC. Not at all. You can be an individual creative spirit and be streaming in through a pod or through some kind of bed, some kind of ancient, maybe they had these in ancient Egypt, like seriously, some kind of tomb that you're sleeping in. I don't know. Okay, so that's it for this particular Q&A video. I'm going to do the rest of the questions in another video, which I will most likely send out in a week or so from now. And if you want to get one of your questions answered, just fill out the Q&A form that's linked below, and my course link is below as well. So if you're interested in that, check it out. I also do personal psychic readings. So if you are wanting to look into what your higher forms are, what kind of energies you're connected to, I can definitely do that as well. Thank you for these questions. They're super interesting, and I will see you guys later.